We are live. Look at that.
Perfect.
So much changed in 1 second there. So hopefully we get a few folks joining us live. If not, it'll, I think, still be there playing. Welcome to my channel, Dr. Bo, Fit Care Physio. And I wanted to introduce, is that you? You're going live? Is that your beat?
Yeah, it was just letting me know. Yep.
So I wanted to introduce you guys to EZA, who I played high school football with, and we recently reconnected. And I kind of want to tell that story because I want him to tell a bit of that story. And I'm excited about what it all means, not just for our friendship, but yeah, meaningful connections is one of those 5 pillars that we talk about. I just did that video with Maha a few weeks ago. But yeah, I really am excited to hear from EZA. I want him to take us through a little bit of his journey and then how I come into that story. And again, we went to Brooklyn Tech High School for those who might be familiar, back in Brooklyn, New York, one of the top high schools in America. He's a smart fella and had the world at his feet as entering college, and took him down some different paths that I would say ultimately led to not the best health situation. So I'm gonna let him talk about that a little bit. And again, how we connected. So EZA, take it away.
Got it. So, hey, everybody. Dr. Bo, thanks for having me on the channel. And basically, here's the deal. So, Dr. Bo and I played football in high school together. And being as how he was always the, thinner, more fit guy and also a very intelligent guy, he was our quarterback and I was among the linemen. And linemen, for anybody that watches football or knows football, we are notorious for every possible known injury to men. So I was no exception to that rule. So by the time I had completed my football career, which was 4 years of high school football, followed by 6 years of semi-pro football, in the hopes that I would get a scholarship at some point, I ended up with over 20 different injuries throughout my body. And over the years, those injuries led to an autoimmune disorder, which is referred to as mixed connective tissue disorder. And basically what this is when you are somebody like me that has had multiple severe injuries back to back to back, and then continue to rehab them and play through those injuries and those pains, your body kind of gets stuck in overdrive, and my immune system started attacking my healthy cells. And the easiest ones to go after, as everybody should know, is your connective tissues, which translates to your joints first and foremost. But then what people don't think about when we talk about something like this is that all those little arteries and veins and cartilage and all those little tissues you have in your body are all considered connective tissues. So fast forward to today, I suffer with my mixed connective tissue disorder, which in addition to all my injuries, causes severe osteoarthritis. So this year I just celebrated my 36th birthday, and I have the arthritis of an 80-plus-year-old. So that was the joke that I actually made that got Dr. Bo and I to reconnect on Facebook. So after a long time of not speaking, he reached out to wish me happy birthday, and I had made a comment about how I'm 36 going on 86. And that kind of, opened up the door to our conversation as to, what's been going on. And Dr. Bo has been kind enough to actually take me on as a project, if you will, as one of his clients. And it's been a really exciting roller coaster so far, with some really great results. And I'm really happy to say that everything we've done so far has been working great. I'm feeling substantially better. So, Dr. Bo, I'll turn it back over to you to explain to everybody what the course is that you got me, onto. And then I'll jump back in with you and then tell the audience, what I've done so far along that course.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I really appreciate that you're willing to share your story. And I think it's vital. And there's a lot of people out there who might not have as severe of a medical situation as you, that could benefit from a lot of these same changes. So again, when you started talking to me about some of the stuff going on, I instantly connected it to my mission that is my business, Fit Care Physio. You told me about a lot of the medical practitioners that you've seen, right? And the healthcare system is not really equipped super well to deal with complicated issues like this. It's great for saving your life and keeping you alive,
Right.
you know, and it's easy to put you on medications that if your cholesterol is whatever, it's too high, boom, we can throw a pill at it and we'll get your cholesterol in the good levels that we want it. You know, same thing if you break your leg or you have an issue with your heart, we can clean it up. We can
Right.
go ahead and save your life. But when it comes to, again, a mixed connective tissue disorder, when it comes to autoimmune concepts, which are a little more complicated, there are practitioners out there who specialize in this stuff. I don't specialize in it, but I have done so much work with folks in similar situations. So again, when you told me your story, I was like, let's see if simple changes can really make a difference. And a lot of it comes down to food. That's one of my main passions, is getting people to understand. And again, I can stand up here and scream, you know, everyone eat more veggies and you know, eat grass-fed and grass-finished beef. And you know, even you're not yet eating the beef, right? We're not doing the beef yet. You're still.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing the beef. Okay. What was it that you were like not ready for protein wise?
I would say the organ meats and seafood. You know,
Okay, yeah.
those two arenas for me are, ooh, might as well be giving me a bowl of poison. I'm like,
Well, the organ meats. I should have sent you some of the Black Friday deal. There's still Cyber Monday. We can talk when we're off, as we're recording this. But there's some organ meats you can take in a pill that you'll get a lot of the benefits from, and yeah, and seafood wise, again, it's, you know, as long as we have some protein sources that are clean and get you moving in the right direction, that's the end of the day, the most important thing. So yeah, so coming back to it, and again, I want to tell everyone who's tuning in, I think Paul Nichols, our other teammate.
Paul. Hey, Paul.
Yeah, I think he's the only one on right now. Anyway, hopefully some folks catch this on the replay. But I got to say, EZA has been one of my all-star clients in that when we talked, and the reason when I was talking to him again, like, how do we work together? It's always a little tricky with someone you have some kind of relationship with, even though we haven't talked in some time since high school, pretty much outside of Facebook. But yeah, it was clear that he was motivated. It was clear he was frustrated. It was clear he was ready for a change. It was clear he had seen my posts and respected me enough to move forward with this process. But also, like, I needed to make sure we had those conversations and said, like, look, based on everything I'm seeing, based on my previous experience, this is going to take a year. Are you in for a year? Are you in it to win it? And EZA was like, let's go, let's do it. So that's why we're here, and we're talking about doing these kind of 30-day check-ins along the journey. You know, again, modern television, we see The Biggest Loser as like the way that you know, a lot of folks are able to kind of comprehend, you know, somebody losing 100 pounds in whatever it is within 30 minutes of an episode, more or less. And again, what do we see with a lot of that is it's you know, trainer yelling at you, and it's these quick changes and these really big kind of, you know, life, you have to grab them by, you know, whatever, that don't finish that sentence for political reasons. Anyway, coming back to it. So EZA, again, I want to say all-star client. One of the reasons I was eager to take him on and work with him is I could tell his mindset was, I'm going to do what you say. I might have some questions, but as long as you can answer my question and be reasonable about it, like, I'm not going to fight you on it. So we're going to talk a little bit about initial changes. I don't know if you want to talk about what that process, you want to jump in? Yeah.
Yeah, so guys, basically, Dr. Bo knew that, you know, from our respective backgrounds, right, we're both essentially athletes that are also geeks, right? And we love education, we love filling our minds with information. So first thing he did is he put me on the right track as to what type of books to start reading and looking into. And one of those was actually the book called The Walls Protocol, which was something that was created by Dr. Terry Walls. And Dr. Bo, I'm sure, has talked about her methods and her books many times in previous videos as well. But basically, it was all about attacking the problem that we're facing head on instead of trying to put various different types of band-aids on it. And Dr. Bo, you're absolutely right when you say that I had reached a point where basically traditional medicine, the way we know it to be today, was basically starting to fail me, right? Because there was no real solution, there was no real end in sight, and every answer I was given from every doctor I have seen has been something that would lead me down a further and further declining negative road, with the only thing in my future foresight being ending up in a wheelchair, or worse, and then a very early, untimely death. So, not to be grim, but for me, I've always been a fighter, and I couldn't let myself sit with that as my diagnosis, and I just couldn't deal with it. So I was looking for the way out, if you will, and this is what got us basically on this journey. So initially, from what we talked about, I discussed all the different depth of issues and injuries and different problems that were going on. So the first set of changes was simple, right? 3 basic rules that Dr. Bo gave me to start off basically cleaning my body for the first 30 days, so to speak, right? And these are all things that are talked about in the book, and there are many other practitioners also that talk about this type of a process, being that you're effectively cleaning all the toxins and all the junk out of your system, right? So the first 3 rules were really easy for me as far as I could tell, but it was a little scary. So the first 3 rules were, now rule number 1 was avoiding all types of dairy. And for somebody from my background, I have a Russian background, so dairy and me were like this. We're like BFFs. So this was very challenging. Rule number 2 was no grains. And in our family, the way we were brought up, bread is like every meal you have some form of bread. And this also was a little bit of a culture shock for me. Rule number 3 was the no legumes. And for me, that kind of blew me away, because in the past I had tried a vegetarian lifestyle with some success, but not complete success, right? And after getting into the knowledge base that Dr. Bo put me onto, it opened up the door for me to understand a little bit more in depth as to what I thought I was doing that was correct is actually some of what was hurting me in the long term. Right. And effectively, the main focus of what we did in the first 30 days, especially, is just focusing on the fact that whatever I'm putting in does not cause inflammation. If anything, whatever I'm putting in reduces inflammation. So every autoimmune issue I have, my obesity, my being overweight, all these factors tie into the fact that the foods that I was eating before were causing boatloads of inflammation in the stomach, in the gut, in my joints, in every part of my body. So in the first 30 days, by adopting these 3 rules and adding one simple 4th rule, which is having at least 800 grams of some form of vegetables and or fruits mixed together, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't, guys, because if you really do the math on it and you weigh out your food and you actually see what is what, you actually see that if you really have a big salad for dinner, that one salad pretty much can give you all the required amount of veggies and nutrients that you need for the day. It's just a matter of making the choice to definitively have that big salad every day, in addition to all the other foods you're eating throughout the day. So far, those were the initial changes that we started with, right? So we took out, just to recap, we took out the dairy, we took out grains, aka gluten, and we took out the legumes, and then added in more veggies and fruits. That was it. And other than physical therapy stuff that I've been doing, because lately some of my knee and ankle injuries have resurfaced because of the disease that I have progressing, they put me onto physical therapy 3 days a week, really aggressive physical therapy. I'm doing an hour and a half to 2 hours per session. And but that's really my only exercise. So without having to add any major exercise or anything like that, just adjusting the food so far, I can tell you guys this. 1, I've already lost about 14 pounds and some change. So I'm just going to round it down to an even 14 pounds I've taken off. in terms of weight. But in terms of other aspects of my life, I have been feeling dramatically better. So one, I'm sleeping way better, right? Before I used to struggle to get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and they weren't even that good in terms of the sleep. Yep. This has been a helpful little tool. Yep. Two, I have a lot more mental clarity. When you have an autoimmune disorder and you're in 24/7 pain, not to say that my pain has gone away, I'm still in pain every day, but at least now I don't have a mental fog from the pain, right? That's been a huge help.
And I want to jump in real quick. We'll talk about maybe the Whoop, what we pointed to, if anyone isn't aware of that. But I wanted to jump in because you talk about the brain fog, and a lot of people, again, in my experience, don't realize how much brain fog they have until they decide for whatever reason. And so, because again, it's just not, you have all this accumulation of a breaking point that got you to say, oh, I need to do something. And now that we're doing it, now you see like, oh, okay, cool. This makes sense. I'm getting, again, based on the Terry Wall's principles and things like that, of lowering inflammation every day in my body. So that's just going to start cleaning things up over time, and improving. The other big thing that Dr. Walls talks about is mitochondrial function. So like you said, it's not just getting the bad out, which is a huge part of it, but it's increasing the good. And just, again, if you guys listened in so far, 3 things to eliminate, but also 1 thing to really focus on, including. And so we didn't even go down the path of like, let's have different types of fruits and vegetables. Right. You know, just let's keep it simple in the beginning here. The other part I wanted to mention that you glossed over a little bit, which is fine. That the main thing before we started to implement any change was, again, we had a number of conversations. I wanted to make sure you were on the same page of like understanding why we're doing what we're doing, what path we're about to go down. Before I said, hey, like you need to stop eating Wheaties, which again, when you sent, the point was that you sent me a food log, right? 3 days is all I really wanted, because it gave me enough information to say, hey, I'm looking at, and again, this is one of the most frustrating things for me. And that, again, anyone out there listening, camera keeps messing me up. Anyone out there listening, you think you're doing the right thing a lot of times, which EZA was a perfect example, that he thought he was eating healthfully. He thought Wheaties was a good option for him. And again, I don't like to say there's good and bad foods, as we talked about, but at the same time, I think, and what we're talking about here of eliminating those 3 food groups is a little bit of a EZA experiment, an N=1 experiment of let's try to eliminate these for 30 days, right? This is the Rob Wolf, another one of the books I recommend that EZA read, and the sleazy car salesman spiel of let's see how you look, feel, and perform from eliminating these 3 foods that we know generally on our side, the biochemistry, like the labs, the scientists, we kind of know that these things cause problems. So if you eliminate these 3 things that keep causing problems, just like let's use the analogy of credit cards. If you stop using credit cards and stop getting APR percentages and fines and fees and late fees and all this stuff, if you stop doing all that, you're going to have more money. If you get on top of your finances, you're going to have more money. So the same thing goes with the food. Start cutting out these, and like if you eat bad things, it's important to know what it is that might be a bad food. And again, I don't like good and bad, but it's EZA said it perfectly on our kind of pre-call of, and if you want, I'll let you say it because I think it's almost more powerful coming from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things for me in the beginning was making that mental shift, right? And as you mentioned, I thought I was doing the right thing, right? So in my head, for years, anybody that knows me, I was the king of trying to take unhealthy recipes or unhealthy foods and finding the healthier way to make them. So like making lasagna, for example, instead of using pasta, I would use a veggie-based pasta, which is still pasta, but it's just not as good for you as I thought it was, right? So I was looking at it from the perspective of I need to eat low fat, high fiber, and get a variety of veggies in and stuff. And I thought I was doing the right thing. And I didn't realize how reliant I was on all the processed carbs and foods that I was previously eating, right? And what the shift for me that made the effectual click in my mind was I'm choosing between eating something that is known to make me sick, or B, eating something that I know has a chance to make me better, right? So that was that first mental shift that had to be made. It wasn't so much looking at it as I'm losing out on options or I'm losing out on food, but instead I'm actively making the choice that if I choose an apple over a donut, right, that apple benefits my body, whereas the donut is making more inflammation and causing a variety of issues throughout my system. So that initial mental shift was important, right? And the other thing too I want to touch on, Dr. Bo, with the mental clarity aspect of it, is that you don't really think about it until you're in the meat and potatoes of this process, how much the mental fog is what causes your cravings, right? So for me, I thought, even though I typically didn't have a very strong sweet tooth, I did very much enjoy, ice cream. Like sweet dairy was a big thing for me, as well as, even though I would avoid like liquid sugar, like soda, right? I had no problem having a processed carb or like a cake mix or something that I would even make at home, and not realizing how bad it was, even though I was cutting out the sugar and cutting out the fat and cutting out, because I was actually not giving my body anything it really needed, right? So the fog clearing up actually also cleared up my cravings, right? So the first, let's say, 3 or 4 days of this process, because I was also learning more about the foods I was eating and understanding what I was putting in and how it was affecting me. I was concerned that I was going to have ridiculous carb cravings for all the typical things I was used to. Like, for example, a big one for me was the Wheaties in the morning with my Fairlife milk. And I thought I'm doing the right thing. I'm getting fiber, I'm getting nutrients, I'm getting high protein from this refined milk. And I thought I was doing all the right stuff, right?
You'll be on that cover of the Wheaties box,
Yep.
kid.
Exactly. So that big shift really changed a lot for me. So after the first 3 or 4 days, my cravings even changed. Like, instead of craving my bowl of Wheaties, I went to craving some avocado spread that I can put on like an almond cracker or something when I needed that little fix, of a carb or something. But what I was actually putting in was a very powerful, high antioxidant vegetable fat from a organic vegetable, as opposed to, out of a bottle that was made, in a factory 5 states away. So this was a big key difference for me. So I think learning about the Walls Protocol, reading the Rob Wolf book, those two, for my mental acuity and understanding of this process, definitely helped me a lot. And I really geeked out on it. And I think you mentioned talking about the Whoop as well. So I was probably very skeptical at first about the Whoop, but to a degree, it has helped me. And what has also helped me is the fact that you hold me accountable to myself, right? So having me do my food log and my journaling and documenting this process. So every morning, getting up bright and early, doing the pictures, cooking a proper breakfast, packing food to take with me to the office when I'm working for a 12-hour day. So it's not so much the idea of meal prep where you're eating the same thing every day, day in, day out. It's just more of me being focused on me, because in the past, I would always be focused on work and everything else in my environment. And when it came down to me, I needed a quick and easy solution. And I replaced that quick and easy solution with the hard work I'm putting in to prep all my own food ahead of time. And fortunately, like you said, I have a good support system. So that also is helping in this process as well.
Yeah, so it brings me a little bit. We talked about a lot of the changes. Kind of the next stage is moving forward, right? And focusing on. So my big brand is about the 5 pillars of health. So we have movement, which is usually the first one, but I'll say, and Isa understands this. He was already, he was already going through physical therapy, but at the same time, I said, let's focus on this nutrition side first. So it's a different pillar, but if that pillar is so far behind, I'd rather we clean that up and put all our energy on that. Because if we try to do exercise and this and sleep and stress and everything, it's going to set us up for failure. Yeah. So again, and I've seen it time and time again. So I think the best way is, again, we're committed for that year, right? And it's we have a little more wiggle room, so to speak, of let's make sure we do this right. Not, I want to see results in a month. Why haven't I seen results in a month?
Exactly. And the interesting thing too, Dr. Bo, is if you don't mind me just jumping in on this point, what actually made this process that much easier for me is the fact that we weren't trying to put me into the norms of, eat less calories, therefore you'll lose weight. Truth be told, in this entire process, I have yet to count a calorie. I have not considered it even in the slightest. I've just been eating until I feel full, and that's it. And as a big guy, for anyone that knows me, my portion's pretty big, for the most part. But it's funny when you make this shift where for certain foods, I can maintain those large portions. So like when I have a salad, I'll have a huge salad and I enjoy it openly. But on the flip side, when I have carbs and proteins and fats, what's interesting is I don't need as much of them to feel full, or to feel satiated, which is interesting. Is it something I didn't expect? So when I've been keeping track of my food logs, it's actually interesting in that on average, without me trying, but simply by having these higher fat foods with the good fats, the higher protein foods with the good protein, and then just staying away from all the junk carbs and just sticking with the basics, right? Like I've been doing the sweet potato family, the squash family, and the potato family as my primary starches, and of course a little bit of rice mixed in, and all of which are bought fresh and I make fresh, which also has played a major role into it. So it's interesting in that I haven't counted any calories. I haven't really been measuring food for its caloric content as much as just to keep track of it in the food log in terms of the volume of what I'm eating. But it's been dramatic in that I'm not counting calories, not doing anything that I would have done in the past, thinking that I was doing, again, the right thing, and my body has just responded so well. Like my pain has been less. And today when I was at the doctor's office picking up my blood work, which is part of our next stage of our process, right? The doctor actually mentioned, I don't know if you guys can tell in the video because I have very strong lighting here, but my skin, especially on my face, was very pale. And I had this like sunken look, when we first started this process, where the skin here and here was pale and the skin here was very like dark and yellowish. And what's interesting, the doctor actually pointed out, he was shocked. He was like, your skin is flush and you're not pale. You're more your natural healthy looking color and you're kind of glowing. And I was like, wow.
Are you pregnant?
No. Those were actually the doctor's words. I was shocked. And now, like, even as I look at myself in the camera here, it looks like my head is shiny, like like I'm sweating or something, but I'm not. What's actually happening is I guess you could say my cells are just working a little bit better, and it's made a substantial difference. Like my hair is growing faster, my nails are stronger and growing faster. My skin is noticeably clearer and I would say tighter, if that's the right descriptive word here. But yeah, it's and these are all changes that are just naturally happening over time. I haven't done anything outside of just monitoring the foods, and that's been it. So it's really, really been working well for me.
Yeah, and I'll say to that, those are not uncommon side effects.
Right.
So those are very common
Much
when
better side effects though than what the
yeah.
doctors are telling me from the drugs. Like the options that the traditional medicine has given me for this stage of my life was either crazy heavy dose opioids of Vicodin, codeine, Percocet to deal with my pain, which, as we all know, damages your kidneys, damages your liver, among other million and one side effects.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was my option one. And option two was immunosuppressant therapy, where you literally ingest poison to give your immune system something to fight off, which weakens it.
Right.
So that's why I had to go with you. I had to do this. It made no sense. I was like, neither of those two paths lead me down living a good, healthy life.
Right. And it's interesting. And again, the I'll go back to my kind of brand name, but the concept of let food be thy medicine is it's been around since ancient Greece, right? All the great thinkers. I think that quote is to Hippocrates, who the Hippocratic Oath. And so it's something that's there. And again, no doctor is going to be like, what are they going to say? They're going to say what they traditionally say. And again, I know many medical doctors. So if you're listening, or I'm not out to insult anyone, but a lot of the times all they're saying is eat better, eat more vegetables, right? It's like, but there's no roadmap, there's no guidance. Maybe they recommend a nutritionist, on a higher level, but it's still very rare. And again, it's just complicated. And that's why we need to have these conversations. There needs to be some guidance. There needs to be some level of like, are we moving in the right direction? He's still under medical care with his doctor. He's still getting normal blood work. I'm not like, let's cut you out of the whole system. And but I want like, you're not on cholesterol medication, right?
Oh, no, I am.
Oh, you are, right? Which is why it's so low. If we can throw that out there. Sorry, but one of my goals is for your doctor to take you off of cholesterol medication, right? Like I'm not going to say get off your cholesterol medication, even though I strongly would want you to right now and today, but I'm not. That's not. There's all sorts of wrong for all sorts of reasons. And back to the other point about your skin and visual changes. It's something that, again, and if you're watching or whatever, like almost any human I see, I am looking at that as a physical therapist, as a healthcare practitioner. I'm looking at someone and I'm able to say, like, you're an inflamed human being. Like, you don't eat very healthfully, or there's stuff that you're eating that is not agreeing with your body. And it shows so many ways. Obviously, it's very rude in our society to go up to someone and be like, excuse me, you look very puffy. Like, trust me, I've thought of it. But again, it's something that I think, again, food, every meal, we eat 21 meals a week, right? You eat 3 meals a day as a general number. Like, if we can even get to a point where you have 11 meals that are good for you and 10 meals that are less good for you, at least you're moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, most people don't even have anywhere near 10 meals that we can consider good for them. And again, they tend to think that things they're eating are good for them. And I just I'll share a little bit of my experience. And I'm not, everyone thinks I'm this, fantastic health food guy. But bottom line is, like, up until about 2010, the majority of my understanding about health came from Men's Health. And so what did that have me eating? Low-fat yogurt, whole wheat pasta, brown rice, which are 3 things I basically would not put into my body, like, ever, at this point. And that's kind of back to where we're moving forward to, of refining a little bit of the diet, right? We've already gone a bit with eliminating these 3 things that are theoretically causing some inflammation. We can further clean up diet and eliminate other things like red pepper, eggplant, nightshades. We can go down that path, which is the autoimmune protocol under Dr. Terry Walls and Rob Wolf and guys like that. So that's one of the next stages we can go to. But it's, again, continuing to create other rules as we go, as you learn. And again, it's almost a blessing now that COVID's happening. Otherwise, I know I would be eating out a lot more
Right.
if COVID wasn't happening. And but eating out is a very tricky thing for someone trying to be healthy, because the oil is that it's cooked in is such a huge wild card. And oftentimes most restaurants are not using the best quality oils. And it's infuriating in some capacity, but it's something that we just need to accept to some extent and say, if we can understand this, it's somewhat worth the risk, maybe, if you know how often you're eating it. But if at home, like, don't have vegetable oil, don't have canola oil, which again, some people think are healthy options. But it's my responsibility, based on the knowledge that I've attained, to tell someone like you, that like, put down the canola oil. And again, it might sound silly, but it's to me, it's a life-saving thing that, like, you know, by cutting out canola oil at the age of 36, EZA, just if he did nothing else, I think would extend his life X amount of years. Like, again, those are all claims that are difficult to make. And again, nutrition science is a little all over the place. But bottom line is, I think that this evidence is emerging. Some of that evidence is strong and present. It's just hard to sort through hundreds of studies and fight through, again, all these food lobbies and all these other things. And I'm not here to conspiracy theory this thing, but but bottom line is, you know, the proof is in the pudding, which pudding is acceptable, I think. Non-dairy pudding.
Depends how you make
pudding. Yeah. And also, I did want to say real quick that another part of the process moving forward is, and you did just have for Thanksgiving, pumpkin pie and ice cream. Now, did you notice any, and that was at a point where you had already eliminated dairy, grains, and legumes for 20-something days at that point?
Yeah, Thanksgiving was a couple days ago, so I would say today is my 30th day of eating this way. So I would say 25 days in is when I had the pie, right? So rough estimate, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting is, you know, I controlled myself, right? I had a big piece of pie and like 2 or 3 big scoops of ice cream on with it, and I was like, this is gonna be my one cheat. And the funny thing is, I did relatively okay with it. I was concerned that I would be taking it a lot more negatively, but I didn't. Little bit of a stomach ache the next day, you know, but other than that, I was okay. But the interesting thing was, the following day, like after Thanksgiving, I also by choice made it a much lighter day on my digestive system, right? So the following day, we had a very busy day scheduled. I had a lot of different appointments and things going on. So throughout the day, I ate very light. I had a protein shake the following morning. I went to my physical therapy and then kept it light throughout the rest of the day. I had a few fruits and a protein bar throughout the day. And then in the evening, I had my nice salad again, and I was good for the day. And what's interesting is, one of the little tricks I've adopted for ourselves is I've made my own version of like a healthy family, I guess you would call it like a trail mix type of thing, where I've incorporated several different types of nuts, dark chocolate, and the tart cherries that we spoke about, as well as dried strawberries. And this concoction, this little mixture, when you're having those moments of weakness and those sudden cravings, or you need a little extra something because you didn't feel satiated from the meal, you have a little handful of this stuff, and it hits every one of those craving points, right? You get a little sweet, you get a little fat, you get a little salt, you get a little carb, and then it kind of covers the bases of what would normally derail someone from this process, you know? So that, I think, for me has also been super helpful, you know, in this process. And now I'm looking forward to, you know, the next stages, right? So right now, I'm not sure what our next move is, Dr. Bo. So I'll leave it up to you to tell me what we're doing next. Because I'm thinking either we continue this 30-day cleanup or in one of the books that I read, there was a discussion about doing the 7-day carb test, right, where you test your blood glucose and all that. So I think I have to prepare myself before we can do that for sure, because I have to actually buy the proper, equipment to measure blood glucose the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to take that extra added step to get the kind that can measure ketones as well, so I can get an idea of where my ketones are in relation to how I'm eating for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Another interesting little side piece. So so tell me what's next. What are we doing for this next 30 days?
I think I'm still waiting for your recent food log.
Oh yes, I'll get that to you tonight after we go. Sorry about that.
So the idea is we can double check, and I wanted just to look through that to make sure, again, from talking to you as we've been in communication, it sounds like a lot of the steps obviously are making progress. So it's just a question of what have you been eating? Can we look at, hey, maybe let's get rid of that dried strawberry from your trail mix if possible,
right,
and replace it with something else, because maybe that's a little like less than ideal. Again, I don't like doing those like nitpicky things until it's more necessary.
right.
So food wise, I think we can start to look at some of those things. You mentioned you haven't really been counting, you haven't counted calories a single day. One thing that we might move into is double checking. And I know when you do the food log, you get your protein numbers. So possibly looking at, are we hitting the protein about where we want to get to based on some general recommendations from the literature and everything like that. So protein is a big next stage. Re-looking at the quality, right, of everything, which again sounds like it's in the right path, and continuing to clean up quality is part of that. The other part, we were talking about the 5 pillars of health, right? You have your connectivity, you got a good support network. If you ever wanted to do a session with my wife, I can't not say it that way, the sex and relationship therapist, she's part of that support system. And so in terms of connectivity, in terms of checking in about relationships, I do encourage everyone I work with at some point to check in, even if things are pretty good with your relationships, just to be like, hey, like, yeah, of course there's going to be some issues, and you just want to check on that, similar to your health, before it becomes a bigger issue. So it's worth having some of those conversations, I think. So that's always there as an option. I don't push that on anyone. But 5 pillars, again, we got connectivity, mindset, which again we've played with a little bit, and we're gonna, as we get into the movement piece, the mindset will be there a little bit more with some of the breathing, which we've touched on a little bit. I want to ramp up the breathing exercises, so that's going to be in our True Coach system.
Okay.
Separate from the food, as the food is more aligned, as you're more on auto drive with the food, I think that'll connect. And the last bit being that movement, right? And seeing if we mentioned talking about going in the pool. So I didn't want to overstep on too many toes with the physical therapy that you're doing now in person, since all our work is virtual. And so we're gonna start sending you some pool workouts, I think, in a week, right? That's what we talked about.
Yep.
And about the continuous glucose monitor, or the glucose monitor, there, I did want to talk about that for a sec, since you brought it up. We can kind of wrap up there, but that comes from Rob Wolf's book. The basic concept there is, again, based on our two healths and the way we've eaten probably for the last, 30 years,
right?
We might have different effects from a banana or a slice of bread. So if in the morning for breakfast, right, we both choose to have a banana, right? And I take my blood sugar and I see the number, and it might go from whatever baseline 60 to 100. And then you have that banana and it takes you from baseline, maybe I would assume your resting blood sugar is a little bit higher than mine. So maybe you're at 100 and mine raised by 40 points, and now yours raises by 80 points. Okay, so it goes from 100 to 180. A couple things there. It's good to understand which foods raise your blood sugar more. So now we're kind of getting a better sense of that. It's a cool thing to do with your partner, or me. You could do it with me. That's fine. But it's a cool thing to do with your partner, because if you're both having the same breakfast, or you can now theoretically say, hey, like, I'm not going to have that oatmeal because the oatmeal really spikes my blood sugar. It spikes it by like 80 points. I don't like that. That's not great. Whereas even again, like, and you might be surprised, like a bowl of white rice only sparks it or raises it 10 points or whatever. But the point is, similar to eliminating these 3 food groups, right? And then reintroducing some of these foods, which is why I was asking about the pumpkin pie and the ice cream. You had a little bit of bloating in the stomach or whatever. Those are things we can look at. And as we reintroduce things at some point, we can say, okay, let's reintroduce this in a systematic way where we're just doing hummus this week. and there's ways that we can do that that's safer, that gives us more information, similar to the carb tolerance test, which is what it's called. Yeah. And so if we can look at that and have that information of, again, this whatever Bobo bar, the Bobo bar raises, it's a great bar. I recommend it highly. The Bobo bar raises my blood sugar this much. A banana raises it this much. You know, you can start piecing some of that together with the basic theory that your blood sugar control has a lot to do with your overall health, right? So as we continue on this path, this journey, it's looking at more understanding and more awareness, so that, again, 5 years from now, you don't have to still be working with me, and you don't have to say, hey, Bo, like, what do I do about this honey thing? They came, you know, like, is this good for me? Is this bad? Is it good? It's like, dude, like, you know these things, right? So again, that's why it's a year-long process. We're going to continue to build the literature. And again, you're way ahead of a good majority of the clients I anticipate working with, and I have worked with. You're definitely a gold star, gold sticker student there.
It's been an overachiever. It's the Brooklyn Tech.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the majority of it. And I'll sum it up as, again, the long term. And one reason I want you to eat organ meats, and I will find a way, is the grand philosophy that we're trying to get to, and what a lot of these things are moving towards, is your food should be calorically dense and as high in micronutrients as possible. So that's why organ meats are a great match for that, because they give you all, it's a multivitamin, you know, you're getting all of these essential nutrients that we try to take with supplements. And now we didn't touch on the supplement thing. We don't need to, but the point is, there's ways to clean that up. There's a lot of bullshit out there. And again, I'm here to say I've read through a lot of the bullshit. I've fallen for some of the bullshit. I've seen that it was bullshit. And I'm here to help guide people away from the bull-ish. And also guide you towards, again, a better, hopefully more vibrant, more thriving situation, right? That's the other philosophy is, you know, are you here just to kind of survive life? Or because no one survives, no one makes it out alive. Or are you here to thrive, right? And again, like, I love all the cliches, but I also hate all the cliches. But the main thing is, can we get you to thrive as a human, as somebody who has, and it comes, so much of it is from food, you know? So if we can get the food lined up, food choices, every single food choice, if we can, you know, again, 21 meals, if you had that one pumpkin pie and ice cream out of 21 meals in a week, that means you had 20 really good meals that moved you in the right direction, hopefully. Like you said, next day, you're like, yeah, I don't need to go crazy. I had my cheat. And you know, that's cool. So hopefully we can build on that equation, continue to move things in that direction. Do you have questions, Isa, on
I think we kind of got a game plan going. So I think now for the next 30 days, we're basically going to start the experimenting, right? So that's going to be our next mission. So I guess when we have our future conversations on this stuff. We're going to go over, based on what you saw in my blood work today, we're going to go over some adjustments to make, maybe some possible supplements to adjust in to assist in the process. But overall, I think it's one of the key things that I've changed, where I was in the past with the way my brain fog was and the way my energy level was. I'm a totally different person. Like in the past, I was reliant upon 1 to 2, sometimes more energy drinks a day, every single day. It was part of my routine and my ritual. And what's interesting is I've replaced that with, aminos, creatine, glutamine, the items that the building blocks that my body actually needs. And what's funny, I haven't craved an energy drink since maybe day number 3. And we're at day number 30 right now. And I haven't had one, haven't considered having one. I haven't even felt like I've needed it. Just so much more alive, if you will. It's interesting because it's like, in a way, I'm finding myself again, if that makes sense. The old me, the more vibrant and energetic and strong me is kind of coming back. And an interesting thing I want to point out and say thank you for is that if you remember that first video I sent you where I was walking with crutches, I'm very happy to report I am no longer walking with crutches. I'm limping a little bit, but no more crutches. So
I will say, I do have to put on my physical therapy hat, and as great as that is, I'd rather you not have limpy steps, because those steps.
Yep.
So I think we'll find the right mix there. And again, that's kind of next stages of health in general. But yeah, and that's a common misconception is I'd rather be without the crutch, even if I'm limping, but I'm walking on my own. But each one of those limp steps is probably all sorts of compensations up and down the chain that might be causing more damage. So I do have to put on that like cautious whatever PT hat guy. As good as I know we're making progress, and I know we're moving in the right direction, and I know we're just going to continue to go that way. So I'll have to throw that whatever cautionary disclaimer at you.
No problem. Sounds good, man. Well, I'm ready for whatever's next. So I guess let's call it a night as far as the video goes, and let's move on to next stages. I'm ready.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. And look forward to the next chat. On and off thing, ending broadcast. Boom.
Got it.